Good evening. Welcome to the February 24th, 2022 confirmation hearings. The meeting will come to order and the clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Gruber,
Here.
Councilmember Harris,
Here.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Present, ma'am.
Councilmember Martin, Councilmember Patterson,
Here.
Councilmember Pio, Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Vice President Lupian.
Here.
President Melendez.
Here.
Thank you.
So we are here today to hold confirmation hearings for two members of Mayor Evans' administration as required by the city charter. The committee of the whole will consider each resolution submitted by the administration at the next month's committee meeting on Thursday, March 10th, and the council meeting on Tuesday, March 15th. We will begin with Kim Jones as the mayor's selection for Director of Finance. Mayor Evans, would you like to lead us off with a statement regarding your appointment of Ms. Jones?
I would, and I think it's great to have two great Kims in City Hall. So I thought we'd add another one, Kim Jones and Kim Smith. So, but I just want to say that I want to thank City Council for the opportunity to stand before you today. I mean, I'm blessed in that I've been able to really, I believe, secure a great team, and Kim Jones is that piece of the puzzle for the finance department. Many of you may not know, well, many of you know, but some watching may not know. But the finance department is absolutely critical to the city's operation. Our bond rating, that's related to the finance department. Our purchasing, that's under the finance department. All of our cash management, that's under the finance department. Kim Jones brings a wealth of experience from both the private, public sector to this position. She has been our city treasurer, where she had the awesome responsibility of handling every single dollar that the city has. So every red cent that the city had to deal with, Treasury handled it, and Kim Jones led that admirably. The other thing is that she's collaborated with the school district over the years, very quietly. When the school district was short on cash, it was Kim's team that tracked that to make sure that they were never short in paying our bills. I mention that because collaboration is so very important in this job. And a lot of the work that the finance department does, you may not see unless there's a problem. So it's a good thing that you may not know all of the work that the finance department does and is responsible for. Kim is responsible for leading one of our large projects in terms of getting us off our mainframe, where a lot of our systems are located, where people pay their water bills and other things that are there. So Kim brings a wealth of experience. She has the temperament for this position. She has the knowledge for this position. And I'm honored that she has said yes to step up and serve this role as our finance director. I would ask for your support in this nomination, and I'm grateful for Kim stepping up to serve her city. She's a Rochesterian through and through. She's been committed to the city for a lifetime, and she could go anywhere. And have high level positions, probably make a lot more money, probably double what the finance position pays, but she's committed to public service. And I am just so greatly happy for that. So we look forward to asking your questions, and I ask for your support in the confirmation of Kim Jones as the finance director for the city of Rochester.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Ms. Jones, would you like to make an opening statement?
Yes, I would. First, I'd like to thank the mayor for his vote of confidence in me. Thank you for those kind words, Mayor. Okay. Good evening, honorable members of City Council. My name is Kim Jones, and I am the recommended appointee of Mayor Evans for the Director of Finance. I've been a city employee since 1998, working the majority of my career in the Department of Finance, 13 and a half years as the Deputy Treasurer and 8 years as the City Treasurer. I am a lifelong city resident. I like to begin by reading the Finance Department's mission statement, and that is to support the City of Rochester's mission, vision, and values by managing the city's financial affairs. We collect revenues, manage and invest cash, manage city debt, and control financial processing. Our responsibilities are to manage purchasing and assessment operations, maintain financial records and reports, and enforce financial policies and standards. The Department of Finance is comprised of the Director's Office, Accounting, Assessment, Purchasing, Parking and Municipal Violations, Treasury, and Traffic Violations. We are the epitome of backroom operations, but the lifeblood of city government. We ensure that resources are being captured, invest our cash, protect our bond rating, procure commodities and projects, amongst various other duties. We constantly strive to increase our effectiveness and productivity while being mindful of the needs of our customers, both internal and external. I am pleased to be in front of this esteemed body and honored to have the privilege to answer questions concerning the Department of Finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. I will now open up the hearing to questions from the council. I'd like to lead us off just with one quick question. So related to the city's bond rating, I know that over the years we've had some hiccups, and it seems like we're doing excellent right now, on a good path. Can you maybe talk about how, what can be done to continue on that trajectory, making sure that we're protecting the city's bond rating as we move forward?
I think, in my opinion, I think good budgetary management is very crucial. I think collaboration between the various departments is very crucial, as well as continued collaboration with the Rochester City School District, because the Rochester City School District is a dependent district. We need to ensure that their finances are in order as well. The credit rating agencies consider both the city and the Rochester City School District when rating our debt offerings. So we need to work very closely with the school district to ensure that, their finances are in line with ours.
Any questions from council members?
I have some.
Councilmember Gruber?
Thank you. And Ms. Jones, congratulations on the nomination. And I think serving in the city since 1998 is something certainly to be proud of. So you have a lot of experience with our city. I guess my first question for you is, how would you describe our financial position overall?
I think we're in a good financial position. I think that over the years, we've seen, our reserves bounce back, our fund balances bounce back. I think overall, we're in a very good financial position.
Great. I think so too. I guess my biggest question for you is, being that you have as much experience and you've seen some very talented finance directors come and go, but everyone has their own ideas. What are some of the things that, if you were appointed, that you would do differently, or what are some philosophies that would be different with Kim Jones as the CFO of the city?
I think my biggest thing is, I view the employees as one of our biggest assets. And so I think that, if we work to enable our employees to be more efficient, to be more effective in the work environment, if we work to engage those employees in the decisions that we make, I think for the most part, that will continue to move our city forward. But I think employee engagement is very important, because none of these jobs can be accomplished without the help of our very valuable employees. So I'm very big on employee engagement.
Thank you. I may have one or two further, President Melendez, but I'll cede the floor for now.
President Melendez, I don't have a question as much as I have a statement. May I go ahead?
Councilmember Smith?
Yeah. So on February 4th, I did some onboarding with Kim Jones and her team. And she spent, her and her team, over an hour on the call with me, answering questions about everything from the 2034 plan to the number of grants that are managed to the parking system. And so when you mentioned in your statement that you see the finance department as sort of the lifeblood of city government, well, based on what I have seen from you and your team thus far, I think that you bring the mission and vision of the city to life. So I just want to say thank you for all you have done thus far.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith.
Any additional questions from council members?
President Melendez.
Yes, Councilmember Lightfoot.
Yeah, again, I don't have a question, but I do have a very, very, very brief story about this woman, Kim Jones. And I think I see her smiling now. I was in a state as a resident, as a business owner in this city, where when we were selling our taxes to American tax funding, which we since have ceased doing, because, of course, that was, it was almost loan sharking what we were doing to some people. And we really messing up a lot of businesses within our community. I was on the verge of losing my property, losing my business, which I put my heart and soul into, everything I owned, my retirement, et cetera, to American tax funding. I went literally to Kim Jones, as she was treasurer at the time, to her office, not really knowing what my fate was going to be. And she sat down with me, explained the process, worked with ATF and working out a payment agreement with me that bought me a very crucial, critical time to kind of get my affairs in order. And so which ends up saving my business, which ends up, as it relates to, which is a beacon in that community where I am. Those are jobs, those are businesses, those are individuals that were impacted, significantly impacted if I had lost that business. So, I just want to say the type of person that she is. She took the time with me. I was just, as a citizen, as a business owner, to really help me navigate to how I could have a chance to continue to keep my business afloat at a time that was very, very, very scary time for me. And I really appreciated her for that and for going to bat with me with American tax funding. So I just wanted to say the type of woman that she is and the type of help that she provides. And I know she didn't know me, she didn't have to do that. And she did. And I just wanted to let our council members and the public and anybody who's watching to just know the type of person and for someone like that has compassion and will understand that, and to hear her say that it's not only about the employees, but also about the citizens, because these are taxpayer dollars. This is money that's coming from people. There are people behind these dollars, and that can really understand and respect that is just the type of person that I want leading our finances. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you again, Ms. Kim Jones, and appreciate you and the mayor for your appointment or for putting you forth for appointment. And I think it's a great opportunity.
Thank you, Councilmember Lightfoot. It was an honor and privilege.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Lightfoot, for sharing that story with us too. Really appreciate it. Any other questions from council members?
May I add one more, President Melendez?
Councilmember Gruber, yes.
So it's actually building off of the comments that Councilmember Lightfoot had just provided. The city was selling tax liens for I don't even know how many years, but quite some period of time, and it seemed that was something that was really introduced by the finance department many years ago in a previous administration for probably reasons that made a whole lot of sense at the time. And Councilmember Lightfoot, myself, and Councilmember Ortiz came to the administration and came to the finance department and really asked to change that policy. And I'm grateful that we were able to get that done. But it is an example, I think, of a policy that may have been germane and prudent at a certain point, staying on the books, even though it started to make less and less sense. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, Kim, if you were in charge, what would you do to ensure that we were consistently refreshing our policies and making sure that they're really relevant to the moment that we're in?
I think it's important to just review our policies. I think that's important in any environment, to just ensure that, things are equitable, to ensure that, policies still make sense. I think in any environment, not just municipal government, but any environment, it's important to consistently review your policies.
Thank you. No further questions for me.
Okay, final call for questions. Hearing no other questions, that
I'm sorry. I got one more, Mr. President, or a question before I had a statement or story.
yes, sir.
I'd like to ask a question. Thank you, Mr. President. And it kind of piggybacks off of Dr. Gruber, Councilmember Gruber's question. And I know this may not be a total answer for you, Mrs. Jones, but I do think it does kind of fall into your category, because we heard the mayor as it relates to talking about all of the departments kind of working together and in sync. And so this has a human resource kind of picture, but at the same time, it affects our finances. When we're looking at hiring a police chief. We're looking at being competitive as it relates to positions within the fire department, deputy chief positions, appointment positions, as for instance, like your position, and many other appointment positions that have been made or have come before us. And as we look at, the 21st century, and we look at how business is being done across other cities and communities, I kind of want to get your thought on how do we going forward begin to look at our current financial salaries and benefits and things of that nature as it relates to us being comparative and compatible to other cities, so that we can be marketable as it relates to these high level positions that we're finding a hard time finding people to want to, first of all, come to Rochester where it's cold majority of the time of the year. And to be quite honest with you, if we really want to be more attractive, if you will, especially as it relates to senior management and appointments in those types of positions, from your perspective, from finances, what do you think about that? I mean, there's a lot of things that need to change, and that may be antiquated or old ways of doing things. Do you believe in the concept or the fact that, as it relates to us being more attractive and competitive to other cities, that financially we need to start looking at how our benefit packages and what we're doing for our people, since we're talking about employees, what better way of incentivizing employees than offering them great benefits and salaries that are comparable to other cities our size?
Thank you for that question. That's actually an excellent question. I think the effort is a collaborative one. I think, finance, working with the Department of Human Resource Management, working with budget, working with, our various unions. I think, all of those efforts need to kind of come together. I do think that, we don't have an endless pot of money. So, we always have to keep those thoughts, in the forefront. But I do think it's worth, the various areas coming together to discuss those type of concerns.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any additional questions? Okay, hearing no other questions, that concludes our confirmation hearing for Ms. Jones. Thank you, Ms. Jones. You may be excused.
Thank you, members of council.
We will now move on to Michael Burns as the mayor's selection for budget director. Mayor Evans, would you like to lead us off with a statement?
Yes, I am honored to be able to present to you. Now, first off, Mr. Burns has only been on a job for like 4 days, so don't beat him up too bad, okay? But he's been hitting the ground running. I want to introduce you to Michael T Burns Cpa. I think that's very important. He may be one of the first certified public accountants that we're going to have as budget director. Mike brings a wealth of experience, again, from the private and public sector. most recently from the Regional Transit Service, which is one of our collaborative partners. As you know, the bus service is so very important. He also takes time to teach students over at St. John Fisher College. He's worked for Harris Interactive. He's worked for KPMG. So he brings a great wealth of knowledge and service to the city, but he's also been involved in a lot of nonprofit organizations, which is important to me. Villa of Hope, the Epilepsy Foundation. He's been involved with the Susan B. Anthony Museum. So he also understands the community. When I saw him, he walked to his interview when I beat him up in the interview a little bit, but no, it wasn't that hard of an interview. But he walked here because he has a love for the city. So he lives very close to City Hall. So he's committed to the city, which I'm just so grateful about. I always do a deep dive in any of my appointees. So I always ask words that they would describe. And everyone that I asked about Mike, they said prepared, compassionate, hard worker, all things that we need here. But also, then I asked some of the folks who will be working for Mike what they thought of, first impressions, what you thought. And they said, oh yeah, we think that he will fit in well here and will be committed to budget director. The budget director is a tough job because you have to be able to work with every single department, and you have to be able to sometimes tell people no, and that's a hard thing to do. But sometimes you have to be able to say no, but let me explain it to you, and here's why. And Mike has the ability to be able to do that. So I am asking for your support of Mike Burns as our budget director. He is a committed, compassionate citizen that will live out the values of the administration. And I know that he would be honored, but I would also be honored for your vote of confidence in Michael T. Burns as budget director. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Evans. Mr. Burns, would you like to make an opening statement?
I would. Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor Evans, and good evening to you and our distinguished council members. I'll start with perspective on how I will approach this role if confirmed, followed by some thoughts on the Office of Management and Budget and my team, and then look forward to answering council's questions. My wife, Beth, and I have resided in the Washington Square neighborhood for nearly 11 years. This city has become our beloved home. As I wake up each morning, I look out at our city and, to borrow a phrase from the administration's mission statement, see a hope-filled city with an exciting future. However, as I undertake my work as budget director, I am mindful that for many in our city, this work must support the administration's efforts to give many of our neighbors reasons to hope and believe that their future can indeed be one of exciting possibilities. Given my role, it might not surprise you if I said that when I think of a budget, I think of numbers. But as I have contemplated the responsibilities I will undertake if confirmed, my thoughts have returned to the same place. Each budgetary decision we make, each thing we decide to do or not do, and to what measure, impacts the people we serve and the life they will experience as city residents. This perspective will guide my work as budget director. When I think of OMB, I envision a department consistent with the administration's vision of building bridges to our city's future that provides transparent and collaborative leadership, guided by three values: trust, collaboration, and communication. Our department must have the trust of all we support in our work together, whether it be the mayor, department heads, or council. To gain and maintain such trust, the information and supporting explanations we provide must be known for being complete, accurate, and easy to understand. We must also be known as good stewards of the city's financial resources and for using analysis to drive recommendations and measure outcomes. Our department will work with everyone in a spirit of collaboration, recognizing the responsibilities we each have in our respective roles. We will partner with each of you and demonstrate an openness to different ways of doing and thinking. And lastly, my lengthy tenure of 3 days at City Hall has impressed upon me the criticality of effective communication. While many of us are in the same physical place, the busyness of our respective worlds can unintentionally create a silo-like environment. OMB is committed to developing collaborative relationships with those we support and timely providing the information necessary to make decisions. As I close, I'd like to speak about my team. I'm grateful to each of them for immediately making me feel more welcome than is imaginable. I'm so fortunate to have such a highly capable team to partner with in carrying out our important work. I'd particularly like to thank Suzanne Warren for taking every possible step to enable me to hit the ground running on day one. As I accept the privilege of leading this team, I do so accountable for being the leader they need me to be. I am committed to getting to know them and supporting their desired professional development, and am mindful that as we fill vacancies, we must ensure that we have a department that has a perspective similar to the people of our city we are privileged to serve. Thank you, council members, for allowing me to make these remarks. And Mayor Evans, thank you for your faith in me.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. I will now open up the hearing to questions from the council, and I'll lead us off. You have no grace period, Mr. Burns. You come in, and in 90 days, you have to pretty much produce the city budget. I know you have an excellent team behind you, but can you maybe speak to the council in terms of your strategy as you come into the role, how you prioritize this work, and your pathway towards getting to that budget in the next 90 plus days?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that question. So you're right. There is no grace period. And, it would be great to have one on one hand, but on the other hand, I'm happy to be immersed and dropped right into the process. So that's one of the benefits of having a really strong team. When the mayor and I spoke about this opportunity, both he and the deputy mayor really focused on that. And so I view myself in a great position in terms of the team knows how the process is supposed to flow. And so they are effectively guiding me through that and really helping me to get immersed in that. And in fact, I had opportunities as part of my transition to even begin kind of understanding what is the process, what is the timeline, and what's involved in that. So, could it seem like a lot? It certainly could, but, as somebody that likes to, run outside in my free time, even at this time of year, I think there's also, I have to realize that, need to pace myself and we'll get it figured out. Yeah, I'm comfortable walking into situations where I can quickly assess what I know and what I don't know and make sure I get up to speed on that.
Thank you. Councilmember Lightfoot.
Thank you, Mr. President. And nice to meet you, Mr. Michael T. Burns. Pleasure, sir. Two questions. And the first one is your opening statement. You talked about trust, collaboration, and communication. So how does that look? What does that look like as it relates to city council? And let me be very specific about my question. And some of this, Madam Mayor, Mr. Mayor, may be, maybe for you as it relates to his position. So in the past, city council has really had very little input with the budget process. Okay, the budget is oftentimes given to us. When it's given to us, we have a very small window of time for us to make any changes. And if we make changes, they have to be done line by line. And it's almost impossible within the window that we're given to do that when it comes to amending the budget, because we can't amend a part of the budget. We have to amend the entire budget. So that's always been somewhat of a sore area, if you will, with council. So I would ask you, sir, when it comes to trust, collaboration, and communication, what does that look like for as it relates to city council? And then part two of my question would be, you also talked about complete, accurate, and easy to understand. And so, and that every dollar and every decision, there's people at the end of that. The most important piece of the budget, from my perspective, and I've asked these questions every budget cycle, and the most important part of that entire budget, which can be very, very, very intimidating to some people who've never seen that many hundreds of pages of finances. The most important section in that budget for me is the community engagement section, which oftentimes is the smallest portion of the budget. And so I would ask, as it relates to complete, accurate, and easy to understand and engagement, what under your leadership would that community engagement as it relates to the budget look like? So it's a two-part question.
Great. So let me take the first part in terms of trust, collaboration, and communication with council. I think, working with the mayor and, it really means to me ensuring that you all have the information that you need to do your work, right? And that's, I look at that from a perspective of, being a board member, from a not-for-profit perspective, and thinking about, how I appreciate information, flowing to me and being provided to me in a timely fashion, being able to count on the people that provide it to know that it's accurate, and, engaging in dialogue as to, working through questions that come up and what information needs are, again, and working with the mayor to do that. So, I will put myself as best I can in your shoes and try to function in a way that acknowledges the importance of the job that you have to do. Did that answer your first question, council member?
I'll let you slide on that. Go ahead, go. But it's
Okay.
all right.
All right. Great.
I'm not gonna hold up the time. Go ahead.
Okay. Thanks. In terms of community engagement, I think that piece is important, critically important. And, I think I always try to think of the audience to whom information is presented. And, I would present information one way to a group of accountants or finance people. I'd present it in quite a different way and easier to understand way to non-finance folks. So I think, that's kind of coming into the process as it is. And I would say this in general, I'm looking at my first year as kind of living through the process, getting through the process. And then as we reach the conclusion, thinking about and working with the mayor to think about what are the ways that we can improve this so that, the entities that need to provide input, the community, council, department heads, whatever it may be, that we contemplate the order in which that might happen relative to the budget cycle. I think that's critically important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from council members?
I have a question. Actually, Councilmember Lightfoot, you were in the county ledge, and actually, Councilmembers Harris and Patterson were as well. And if I understand this correctly, you had a little bit more time with the budget than we do on council. Is that right?
Yes.
Was it a full 2 months?
Don't quote me on that, but close to it, I believe.
Yeah. So I'm just, obviously this is your first budget cycle. This doesn't apply, but just to be thinking about in the future, something that I'd like to see, and a lot of us I think would like to see, is a little bit more time with the budget, and just to keep that in mind if there's ways to build that into your process.
Thank you, Vice President. We'll be in for that.
Additional questions? Councilmember Ruger?
Thank you. Mr. Burns, I'm curious about your philosophy when it comes to budgeting I guess I could end the question there. Here's about your philosophy when it comes to budgeting, but I guess I'll be a little bit more specific. I assume at RTS, very similar to here, there are assumptions that need to be made about dollars that flow from federal or state levels that are not guaranteed and that may change based on the whims of politics and realities. I'm wondering what's your budgeting philosophy for dealing with some of those unknowns?
Thank you, Councilmember Gruber. I think this city has a long track record of great fiscal stewardship, and the foundation for that has really proven to be appropriately conservative budgeting. So, acknowledging the unknowns and the uncertainties inside of the environment that we operate, and continuing to have those possibilities embedded in the budget assumptions that we develop. I think it's also important to clearly to make sure that all of those tasked with understanding the budget and voting on the budget understand the key assumptions that we are making inside of the budget, that is clearly communicated. And that's really, the approach that we had at RTS, and quite frankly, an approach that I think works well.
Thanks. I have one follow-up question, sort of related. So we're at a very interesting, it's an incredibly interesting moment to come on as a budget director for our city. We have unprecedented amounts of money, virtually unrestricted dollars to be able to spend. And yet we also know that we have a structural budget deficit every year. How do you weave those things together? And again, I don't anticipate that you have answers exactly what to do formulaic for this year, but I'm talking philosophically. How do you deal with an organization with a structural budget deficit that is also sitting on huge amounts of cash?
Thanks for that question. So I think in terms of what you've called structural budget deficit, budget gap that exists each year, I think, we've got ourselves a, good process to work through that and close those gaps. I think what we want to make sure that we are not doing, if we think of the money that we have received, that we find ourselves with, we want to ensure to the greatest extent possible that is used for the transformative initiatives for which it's intended, and not as a significant source of gap closure. So I think it's, there's always a tendency whenever there is that kind of funding available, whichever form it might be, to use it, to address gaps. But I think there's got to be, that appropriate delineation between closing gaps in the ways that we have in the past, continuing to do that, and then making sure that those dollars are used again for the transformative purposes that they're intended.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Patterson.
Thank you. So this is going to be a little strange, but my question is actually not for the proposed budget director. My question is for the mayor. Mr. Mayor, you there, sir?
I'm here, but it's not my confirmation hearing.
Yeah, I know, but it's.
I mean, you're doing something a little unorthodox. I'll see to the president if he wants me to talk. I will, but I don't think that's ever been done. But
well, it wouldn't be a fair question for your proposed budget director, because it just wouldn't be a fair question. But it is in his wheelhouse. So the question at hand is this: historically, and this goes to some of the questions that some of the other council members were asking. Historically, the budget is presented to the council, but the council really has no collaborative work in the budget. Going forward, would you be willing to start a conversation about how we move to that space?
And Councilmember Patterson, if I think that's a fair question to the budget director.
Well, I asked the mayor for a reason.
I'm always open to everything, but I always remind folks too, just because I'm consistent, I always ask them about past practice. So the one thing I will say is that I don't expect to be treated any different than any other past mayor. Sometimes when the person changes, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, but there have been 70 other mayors prior to me. But this year I'm always open. Our mantra is building bridges. So we would be not keeping with our mantra of building bridges if I said no. So we're always open to conversations and to find ways to collaborate. Absolutely.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Councilmember Patterson, I believe, Mr. Mayor, I think I've heard you speak to that effect before, that you'd like to include council more in budgeting and give us a heads up so that we're not surprised with it. So I'm looking forward to even though maybe all the mayors did it differently, I'm looking forward to a more collaborative process.
Mary, Councilmember Lupian, you probably don't know who Barry White is. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but there's a song that
I
he
know
has
who Barry
called
White is. I'm not that young.
You might know the song, practice what you preach. So I will always practice what I preach, and I preach that collaboration. So it wouldn't be keeping within that collaboration if I did. So yes.
So I have an additional question, and it's kind of in line with this discussion. Mr. Burns, just thinking about maybe July 1 and going forward. It's baptism by fire here, this first set of months here, but what level of engagement might you have with the council as we look to next budget cycle, next year and beyond? I know this is very early in the process, but just to get a sense of how you might engage us July 1 forward in terms of this budget process.
Sure. So one of the things that I'm looking forward to as I get into my tenure is meeting members of council. And I think that's, just a great first step for us to get oriented to one another. I think as far as, what happens from July 1st onward, I would echo what the mayor said, which is that, we're really open to, what the process would look like going forward. I think it'll be good to go through it as it exists and then, collaboratively identify opportunities for adjustment. And I'm certainly hearing some feedback here during our time together this evening. So.
And I'm sorry, Mr. President, this isn't my confirmation hearing, but Councilmember Patterson opened up the door. I would also say that you're already seeing that now, because if you look, the budget schedule has been moved up considerably from what it usually is. And that's a function of me having been on council before, and also the conversations that we've already had with the council, the chair of finance, Councilman Gruber. So I think that we're already kind of demonstrating that. And just so you know, I have a list of all of the, and I'm waiting for that list to come over. I know the council member Gruber is compiling this of council's priorities as it relates to budget. But I can go around the screen right now and probably tell you what our council members' hot button issues. So we're definitely going to take all those things into consideration. But I think it's been a good first step. And one of the reasons I think Mr. Burns is here, and as a proposed appointee, is because I think he shares that philosophy that many of you have verbalized about collaboration as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would also just add, Mayor, that you've already made history by singing Barry verses from a Barry White song on YouTube right. During a confirmation hearing.
There we go. That's right. Put that in the minutes, Madam Clerk.
All right, any additional questions? Okay, hearing no other questions, that concludes our confirmation hearing for Mr. Burns. Thank you, Mr. Burns. You may be excused.
Your request is noted, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thanks, everyone. These appointments will be voted on at our committee meeting, the Committee of the Whole meeting, March 10th, and then the March 15th council meeting. We are adjourned.
Pray for Ukraine, folks. Keep Ukraine in your prayers.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Take